Hi, boys and girls. The last time that we met, we were learning about customary measurement. That's the form of measurement that we use in the United States. Today, we're going to be talking about metric measurement. This is what the rest of the world uses in order to measure length. Length is the distance from one point to another. The distance from Chicago to Denver is 1,005 miles. This is distance. It's going from one place to another. So there's a start point and an end point. The length of this frame is 30 centimeters. Centimeters is another form of measurement. That's where we use to measure something small. Centimeters are a form of metric measurement. In our last measurement lesson, we talked about what is wrong with the following statement. The can of soda measures 12. What are we leaving out of this statement? Can you remember? When we're talking about measurement, we need to have a unit. In this statement, the unit is not provided. Is it 12 centimeters or 12 ounces in this can? We do not know because they didn't use units. So when we're talking about units of measurement, we need to know what a unit is. A unit is the standard that something is measured by. There are currently two main systems of measurements used in the world. Can you remember what those two forms of measurement are called? The first one we learned last time, that's customary measurement. This is what we use in the United States. Our second version is called the metric system. This is what the rest of the world will use. Now, the metric system and the customary system use different units to measure. When they're measuring length in the metric system, they use millimeters, centimeters, meters, and kilometers. But in the US system, we use inches, feet, yards, and miles. Inches are small, just like millimeters and centimeters are small. Feet are in the middle, and then meters and yards are very similar, while kilometers and miles are similar. We also have other units for capacity and weight, but we will learn those at a different time. When we're talking about metric length, we're talking about the distance from one point to another. Our units that we use for metric are different than the ones we use for customary. In the metric system, we have millimeters. Those are the teeny tiniest. Then we have centimeters, then meters, then kilometers. When we're talking, millimeters are the smallest, and then we go up and up until we get to kilometers, which are like miles. They're very long. Now it's time for you to imagine what each one of these units is like. So first we'll talk about millimeters. A millimeter is about as thick as a stack of 6 pieces of paper. Can you imagine how thin a piece of paper is? Now even if there's 6 pieces of paper stacked up, they're still going to be pretty tiny. So a millimeter is a very small unit of measurement. A centimeter is about the width of your pinky finger. So I told you earlier that an inch is about the size of the top of my thumb. So an inch is about the size of the top of my thumb. A centimeter is only the size of my pinky. So you can tell that a centimeter is much smaller than an inch. A meter is about the height of a kitchen chair. So picture a chair. It's about the size to the top of your chair. And a kilometer is about the size of 11 football fields lined up. A mile is 17 football fields lined up. So a kilometer is smaller than our miles that we use in the United States to measure with. When we're talking about measuring length, we can say how many millimeters are in 5 centimeters. This is where we learn to convert what are different units. So before we can figure out how many millimeters are in 5 centimeters, we have to remind ourselves how many millimeters are in 1 centimeter. So let's look at our chart over here to help us. There are 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. And if I'm trying to figure out how many millimeters will be in 5 centimeters, then I am going to count by fives. I would count 10 5 times. So let's do that together. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So I would have 50 millimeters in 1 centimeter. I can use a chart like this to convert my different units in the metric system. As long as I know how many millimeters there are in a centimeter, I can do those conversions. So these kind of charts can be very helpful to you when learning how to convert length. I have 5 centimeters and I want to convert that to millimeters. I know that 10 millimeters equal 1 centimeter, so I multiply 5 times 10, and that's how we got our answer, 50 millimeters. We don't want to forget to write that unit in. We write the unit so you know how much. Now let's try another conversion problem. How many centimeters are in 2 meters? To figure this problem out, we need to look at our chart over here that gives us information. It says that 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. So knowing that 100 centimeters equals 1 meter, if I have 2, what do you think I should do to solve that problem? I have 2 meters and each one's worth 100, then I need to add 100 plus 100. Do that problem on your own now. What's 100 plus 100? Your answer should be 200. So I have 2 meters and I want to convert them to centimeters, then I would find that 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, add 100 plus 100, and then my answer is 200 centimeters. This tells me my answer by using the conversion chart. Fill in the missing boxes in each conversion table. You can fill in this information by using what you know. So we know that there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter, so I would put 100 in my first part of the chart. Then I would fill in all of the rest with the information that I know. There are 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer, and knowing that can help me when I'm practicing as I go along. So you can use these types of charts to help you track what each unit of measurement is worth and how many centimeters are in a meter, how many meters are in a kilometer, and so on. Which metric unit would be best to use to measure the length of a paperclip? So when we're thinking about these types of questions, we need to decide which unit of metric in the metric system makes the most sense here to use. Would we use millimeters that are smaller than a piece of paper? Would we use centimeters that are about the size of my pinky finger? Would we use meters that are the size of 3 Journeys books about? Or would we use kilometers, which is about half of a mile? The answer that makes the most sense here would be to use centimeters when I am measuring a paperclip. Which is the best estimate for this paperclip? Do you think it's 1 centimeter or one of my fingernails? Or do you think it's 3 centimeters? The answer should be 3 centimeters. That's a good estimation or guess for how big my paperclip should be. Which metric unit would be best to use to measure the length of a backyard swimming pool? Would I measure it in millimeters, in centimeters, in meters, or in kilometers, like miles? The answer should be meters. I would measure my pool in meters. Which is the best estimate or guess for the amount of meters that my pool would be? Do you think it would be 18 meters or 200 meters? Which one makes the most sense here? The correct answer is 18 meters. That would be like about 18 yards. So that would be about 46 feet. Which metric unit would be best to use to measure the distance from Seattle, Washington to Austin, Texas? These are 2 different states that are far apart from each other. Would I use millimeters, centimeters, meters, or kilometers when I'm measuring from one state to another? The answer should be kilometers. I would measure with kilometers because this is my biggest unit in the metric system. When I'm measuring, which is the best estimate or guess for the distance between the 2 cities? Do you think it would be 340 kilometers or 3,400 kilometers? These 2 states are on opposite sides of our country, so what do you think the right answer would be? The correct answer is 3,400 kilometers because those two places are pretty far apart. We'll do another problem about metric length now. Which metric unit would be best to use to measure the length of a tick? A tick is a small bug, and that should be a very big hint. Which unit would I use in the metric system? The answer should be millimeters, because millimeters are our smallest unit of measurement. Which is the best estimate for the tick? Do you think it's 1 millimeter, or do you think a tick might be 11 millimeters? I would guess 11 millimeters. It's small, but it's not so small that we can't see it. So 11 millimeters is a good guess. Now it's time for us to compare our different units of measurement using the greater than, less than, and equal to symbols. Greater than, less than, and equal to are things that we use to compare different sets of numbers. Before we begin, we have to think about the units that we see for each problem. So for this first problem, we're measuring millimeters against centimeters. Which one of these two is bigger, a millimeter or a centimeter? The answer is a centimeter. Centimeters are larger. So when I'm solving this problem, first I think about which unit is bigger. I know that 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters. So which one of these two would be greater? The answer would be 2 centimeters. 2 centimeters is bigger than 2 millimeters. Now I look at 5 meters versus 5 kilometers. To solve this problem, the numbers are the same once again. There's a 5 in both problems. So what I really need to do is decide which one of these is worth more, meters or kilometers. If you know which one is bigger, you know which way to write your comparison symbol. The answer for this one is 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. So I know for sure that 5 kilometers is much bigger than 5 meters. With that being said, my comparison symbol would face towards the bigger number, towards the 5 kilometers, because those are so much larger than just 5 meters. Our last problem says 3 millimeters versus 30 centimeters. To decide this one, once again, we need to look at our different units. We have millimeters in one problem and centimeters in the other. When solving this problem, I have to decide which unit is larger, millimeters or centimeters. Which one of those two is larger? The answer, of course, is centimeters. Centimeters are larger, so I know that since 30 is a larger number than 3, that my bigger number would be 30 centimeters because 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters. So 30 centimeters is equal to 300 millimeters. And my symbol would face towards the 30 centimeters because it's a larger number. Now that we've practiced comparing numbers using greater than, less than, and equal to symbols, we are going to talk about how to order numbers from least to greatest. When we're ordering numbers, we have to look first at what we're ordering them in. So if we start from least, we're going to start with the smallest number and then move to greatest, which would be the biggest number. Before we can do this, we need to look at our units. We need to decide which of our units is the smallest, and then we're going to convert all of the other measures to that same unit. So our centimeters, meters, or millimeters, the smallest unit. Which of those three is the smallest? Your answer, of course, should be millimeters. So that means we have to convert everything to millimeters. This number is already in millimeters, so we'll leave 500 millimeters as it is. But now we'll look at centimeters and we'll convert it. When we're talking about centimeters, we know that 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters. So that being said, we're looking for 5 centimeters. We need to count by tens 5 times to figure out our answer. So let's count by 10 5 times together. Ready? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So 5 centimeters is the same as 50 millimeters. Now I need to do our second problem. I'm looking at meters and I need to convert meters into millimeters. So I know that 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. So if I know that, then I need to add 2 zeros to my 50, and that gives me 5,000 centimeters. But am I trying to convert all my numbers into centimeters? No, I'm trying to convert into millimeters, so I have to keep going. Now I'm going to turn my 5,000 centimeters into millimeters by adding another zero, like multiplying by 10. So my answer is 50,000 millimeters for 50 meters. That means that my biggest number by far, or my greatest number, has to be 50 meters. And now that I know all of this information and all of my units are converted into millimeters, I can compare them now and put them in the right order. My smallest number, of course, would be 5 centimeters because that equals 50 meters. My largest number would be 50 meters because that equals 50,000 millimeters. And my number that goes in the middle would be the 500 meters because that's in between those two numbers. Let's try one more problem like that and then we'll be our lesson. Order from greatest to least. If I have 100 millimeters, 1 meter, and 8 centimeters, the first thing I do is I notice what I am comparing. I'm comparing greatest to least, which means my biggest number will go on the left and my smallest number will go on the right. So doing that now, I'm going to first look at my units. I have millimeters, meters, and centimeters. Which one of those three is the smallest? My answer should be millimeters. Once again, millimeters are the smallest unit in the metric system. So I am going to convert everything to millimeters. I know that this number can stay the same. Now I am going to look at meters. 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. So if 1 meter equals 100 centimeters and 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters, then all I have to do is add a 0 to my 100 and I have 1,000 millimeters as my answer for this one. So I have 1,000 millimeters, 100 millimeters, and now I need to figure out how to convert my centimeters. 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters. So 8 centimeters would be like adding 8 times to get my answer. So let's count by tens 8 times together. Ready? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. So 8 centimeters is the same as 80 millimeters. Now that I know all three of my units in millimeters or in the same unit, I can compare them. My greatest unit, of course, would be my millimeters. So 1 meter would go first. Then I would put 100 millimeters next, and my final number would be the 8 centimeters because I know they're only worth 80 millimeters. I hope that you enjoyed practicing comparing numbers and ordering them from greatest to least and least to greatest. Now we are going to look at one more final example poster and then our lesson will be over. This is our final review on metric length. Converting units of length, we can think about our 3 units that we've learned. We've learned about centimeters, meters, kilometers, and also about millimeters. So I know that 1 centimeter is the same as 10 millimeters, 1 meter is the same as 100 centimeters, and 1 kilometer is the same as 1,000 meters. This will help me if I were going to do a problem to try to convert my units of length. It's very important that you know what each one of these units are in the metric system and how to use them. It also helps to know which one is the smallest unit and which is the biggest. Thank you for learning along with me, and we will do a new lesson again.